Moscow's airports have been shutting down regularly for months, not because of weather, because of drones. Air defenses detect a wave heading toward the city. Airspace closes across Vnukovo, Domodedovo, and Sheremetyevo, and flights get delayed or canceled until it's over. In May, more than 450 flights were disrupted in a single stretch. This happens often enough now that it barely makes news anymore. Here are the numbers behind how it got to this point. In one 11-hour period in June 2026, Russia's Ministry of Defense reported neutralizing 172 Ukrainian drones across multiple regions, including Moscow, the Sea of Azov, and the Black Sea. 60 of those were shot down over the capital in a single night. Days later, a drone hit the Moscow oil refinery directly, in the Kapotnya district inside city limits, confirmed publicly by Moscow's own mayor. That strike came from a launch point roughly 500 kilometers away. Ukraine's president confirmed it directly, calling it a completely fair response to Russian strikes on Ukrainian cities. This is not a fringe or occasional event anymore. It's a running campaign, and it's grown into one of the most significant sustained drone offensives in modern warfare. Here's how it built up to this. For the first year or two after the full invasion started in 2022, almost none of this reached Russian soil. The fighting stayed inside Ukraine. Strikes on Ukrainian cities, ground combat along the front lines. A drone incident inside Russia was rare enough to be a major international story. That changed starting in 2024, when Ukraine began mass-producing long-range attack drones specifically built to reach deep into Russian territory, some with a range over 1,000 kilometers. By 2025, Ukraine's monthly drone production had jumped from around 20,000 units to approximately 200,000. An entire wartime manufacturing industry built from almost nothing in about 2 years. The primary target became Russia's oil industry, and the damage has been severe enough to have a name: the 2025 Russian fuel crisis. Starting in August 2025, Ukraine launched over a dozen drone strikes on Russian oil infrastructure in a 3-week span alone, hitting refineries across multiple regions. On August 27th, the Ryazan refinery, described as one of the main fuel arteries supplying Moscow, was hit directly. An independent oil and gas analyst called it the most severe fuel crisis Russia had experienced in recent years, noting that the coordination and repeated waves of drone strikes meant Russia couldn't repair facilities before the next wave hit. By late September, the shortage had spread nationwide: rising prices, fuel rationing, long lines, and pumps running dry in multiple regions. The International Energy Agency later estimated the campaign had cut Russia's crude oil processing capacity by roughly 500,000 barrels a day, and projected the disruption would continue suppressing Russian refinery output through at least mid-2026. The strikes weren't limited to oil. Russia's Engels 2 airbase, home to Tu-95 and Tu-160 nuclear-capable strategic bombers, located hundreds of kilometers inside Russian territory, has been hit multiple times since the war began. A March 2025 strike set the airfield ablaze and triggered secondary explosions after Ukraine said it hit an ammunition storage facility there. The regional governor at the time called it the largest drone strike the region had experienced in the entire war. It was hit again months later, catching fire a second time, with a nearby oil refinery supplying the base also damaged and forced offline. And this campaign has a real cost in lives, on both sides, not just infrastructure. In April 2026, a multi-day drone assault on the Tuapse oil terminal on Russia's Black Sea coast killed 3 people and injured 10, alongside a major environmental disaster. Toxic smoke containing benzene and other chemicals spread over surrounding communities. In the Rostov region, a strike on a fuel depot killed 1 person and injured 2, along with damage to a train and 2 commercial buildings. In the Belgorod border region, a Ukrainian drone strike killed a man traveling in his vehicle. These are not isolated incidents. They're representative of a pattern that repeats across Russian border and interior regions on a near-weekly basis now. Russia's own strikes on Ukraine have continued in parallel, without pause, this entire time. In one overnight period in July 2026, Russia fired 94 long-range strike drones and 2 ballistic missiles at Ukraine. Ukrainian air defenses intercepted or jammed 72 of the drones, but 19 drones and both missiles still struck 13 separate locations. Russian strikes have continued killing Ukrainian civilians regularly throughout this same period, including in a strike near a kindergarten in Sumy during a period when a ceasefire had been declared. Multiple attempted ceasefires have collapsed within hours or days of being announced, with each side accusing the other of violations, and neither side has stopped its long-range campaign for any sustained length of time. By the summer of 2026, the frequency inside Russia itself has become the real story. Moscow's mayor now posts near-nightly updates tallying intercepted drones, the way another city's mayor might post traffic updates. Airports shut down, not because they're being hit directly, but because the airspace itself has to close every time a wave is detected. And waves are now detected on a near-weekly basis, sometimes multiple nights in a row. Ukraine has also expanded its targets to include oil tankers directly, setting 2 ablaze in the Sea of Azov in July 2026 alone, along with a reserve fuel storage facility roughly 800 kilometers from the front line, and an oil pumping station in Ufa, nearly 1,500 kilometers from Ukraine's border, deep enough into Russian territory that it would have been almost unthinkable in the early years of the war. More than 4 years into the conflict, the picture looks nothing like what either side likely expected in February 2022. Ukraine built a long-range drone industry from almost nothing, capable of reaching deep into Russian territory on a near-nightly basis, striking air bases that house nuclear-capable bombers and refineries that fund the war itself. Russia's capital has gone from experiencing the occasional shocking drone story to living with airport shutdowns and refinery fires as a regular part of daily life, while Russian strikes on Ukrainian cities have never stopped either. Every attempted ceasefire so far has collapsed within days. This is the current state of the conflict as of this video's published date, and given how fast this has continued to escalate over the past 2 years, it's very unlikely to be the final chapter.